Why does Spain have 5 million empty homes while young people cannot afford rent? Is this the country where construction workers earned more than engineers during the boom, only to see 60% youth unemployment during the bust? What if I told you Spanish banks financed 800,000 homes per year at the peak, when demographic demand justified only 300,000? And why did European central banks' one-size-fits-all interest rate policy create the largest real estate bubble in European history? Stick around, because what you're about to discover about Spain's ghost cities and empty apartment towers reveals why cheap credit and irrational exuberance create disasters that destroy entire generations. 1. The ghost cities. Imagine you're driving through Castilla-La Mancha region in central Spain in 2025. You pass through Seseña, a planned city designed for 30,000 residents. Construction began in 2005, peak of Spanish. Property boom. Developers built 13,900 homes, shopping centers, parks, schools. But as you drive through today, the place is eerily empty. Most apartments sit vacant, never occupied. Weeds grow through cracks in streets. Graffiti covers walls. Shopping centers stand empty, metal shutters rusted shut. This isn't post-apocalyptic movie set. This is real place in European Union, built just 20 years ago, already ghost town. Seseña is one of dozens of similar developments across Spain, 5 million empty homes in total, enough housing for entire population of Norway sitting vacant. In this video, we're exploring why Spain built 5 million more homes than it needed, creating largest real estate bubble in Europe, how European central bank interest rates designed for German inflation created asset mania in Spain, what happens when construction sector grows from 7% of GDP to 16%, then collapses overnight, why youth unemployment hit 56%, creating lost generation, and the zombie banks loaded with bad property loans. If you know someone considering buying Spanish property, share this video and subscribe. Spain's construction boom started in mid-90s and accelerated dramatically after Euro adoption in 1999. Home construction ramped from 300,000 units annually in 1996 to 800,000 in 2006. That's more homes built annually than UK, France, Germany combined, despite Spain having much smaller population. Subscribe now and drop your country's real estate bubble status in the comments. Demographics couldn't support this building pace. Spain's population grew from 39 million in 2000 to 47 million in 2008, increase of 8 million. With average household size of 2.5 people, demographic growth justified 3.2 million new homes over entire decade. Spain built 6 million. The excess supply was 3 million homes, counting second homes and abandoned units. Total oversupply reached 5 million empty properties. Spanish banks offered 100% mortgages, meaning zero down payment. They offered 40-year mortgages. They approved mortgages based on stated income with minimal verification. Interest rates were incredibly low because European Central Bank set policy for entire Eurozone. ECB focused on German inflation, which was subdued, keeping rates at 2 to 3%. For German economy, this was appropriate. For overheating Spanish property market, it was gasoline on fire. Construction became 16% of Spanish GDP in 2006. For context, construction is typically 5 to 7% in developed economy. Employment in construction reached 2.7 million workers, 13% of total workforce. When bubble popped, all those jobs vanished. Construction workers earned more than teachers, engineers, doctors. An uneducated laborer laying bricks could make 3,000 euros monthly, while a university professor made 2,000. This created terrible incentives. Why stay in school when you can drop out at 16 and make more money than your educated parents? Spanish education completion rates fell as teenagers quit to work construction. Foreign buyers added fuel. British, German, Norwegian retirees bought vacation properties. Buy-to-let investors from Ireland and UK purchased apartments planning to rent to tourists. At peak, foreigners purchased 1 in 5 Spanish properties. This external demand made locals believe boom was sustainable. So after examining 5 million empty homes, construction workforce of 2.7 million that vanished overnight, 100% mortgages with 40-year terms, and boom built on foreign demand that evaporated, are we looking at normal market cycle or a generational catastrophe? 2. The bust and the lost generation. 2008, everything collapsed simultaneously. Lehman Brothers failed in September, global credit markets froze, foreign buyers disappeared overnight, Spanish banks couldn't fund mortgages, construction companies defaulted, developers abandoned half-finished projects, banks foreclosed but couldn't sell properties. Housing prices peaked in 2007 at average 2,100 euros per square meter. By 2013, they had fallen to 1,433% decline. In some coastal areas, prices fell 50 to 60%. Millions of homeowners found themselves underwater, owing more on mortgage than home was worth. Unemployment exploded. Construction employment fell from 2.7 million in 2007 to 1.2 million by 2013, loss of 1.5 million jobs. Total unemployment hit 27%. Youth unemployment peaked at 56% in 2013. More than half of young Spaniards seeking work couldn't find it. Imagine you're a 23-year-old Spanish university graduate in Madrid, 2012. You have a business degree, speak English and French, have internship experience, but graduation coincides with the worst economic crisis in Spanish history. Youth unemployment is 56%. Jobs that exist pay 800 to 1,000 euros monthly with temporary contracts. Your parents who graduated in 1980s walked into permanent contracts with 2,000 euro salaries and bought homes within 5 years. You face prospect of living with parents into 30s, working series of temporary gigs, never affording property. The brain drain followed predictably. Between 2008 and 2015, approximately 300,000 young Spaniards emigrated. They went to UK, Germany, Netherlands, France. Like Greece, these weren't random emigrants. They were disproportionately educated, English-speaking, ambitious. Spain invested in their education, then Germany and UK got the benefit. The education mismatch was cruel. Spain had expanded university access dramatically. More young people got degrees than ever before. But they graduated into worst job market in modern Spanish history. University graduates took jobs as waiters, bartenders, retail clerks. Human capital was massively wasted. Spanish banks held hundreds of billions in bad property loans. Developers defaulted. Homeowners defaulted. Banks foreclosed, but couldn't sell properties because market was dead. Spanish banks needed bailout of 100 billion euros from European Stability Mechanism in 2012. Indignados movement erupted in May 2011. Tens of thousands occupied Puerta del Sol in Madrid and squares across country. They protested unemployment, foreclosures, political corruption, bank bailouts. Movement reflected fury of young generation betrayed by boom that enriched older generation then collapsed. PAH, Platform for People, affected by mortgages, organized to stop evictions. When banks foreclosed and tried to evict families, PAH activists physically blocked sheriffs. Some families whose homes were foreclosed still owed debt because Spanish law requires paying mortgage deficiency, even after losing home. Podemos, far-left party, surged to prominence. Founded in 2014, Podemos channeled Indignados' anger into electoral politics. They advocated debt restructuring, bank nationalization. Traditional parties that presided over bubble and bust saw support collapse. If construction boom created economy where uneducated workers earned more than university graduates, and if bust created 56% youth unemployment, forcing 300,000 to emigrate, and if banks that financed insanity got 100 billion euro bailout while foreclosed families still owed money, what kind of social contract remains? 3. The structural problems. Spain's fundamental problem is competitiveness within Eurozone. Spanish productivity per hour is 75% of German level. Spanish wages during boom rose faster than productivity, making Spanish labor expensive relative to output. By 2007, Spanish unit labor costs had risen 25% relative to Germany. The only adjustment mechanism is internal devaluation, cutting wages and prices, until competitiveness is restored. Spain did this brutally. Wages fell, unemployment soared, spending collapsed. By 2014, Spain had regained most of competitiveness lost during boom. But the human cost was enormous. Unemployment stayed above 20% for 5 years. Regional inequality exploded. Catalonia and Basque Country, richest regions, resented transferring tax revenue to poorer regions while accepting austerity. Catalan independence movement strengthened dramatically. In 2017, Catalan government held a legal independence referendum. Spanish government arrested leaders, imposed direct rule. Tourism became Spain's crutch. Spain welcomed 83 million international tourists in 2019, more than entire Spanish population. Tourism accounts for 12% of GDP, but tourism is seasonal, low wage, provides limited technological advancement. Economy built on serving tourists is fundamentally limited. Labor market reforms created two-tier system. Older workers with permanent contracts kept job security. Younger workers got temporary contracts, renewable every few months with no benefits. By 2015, over 90% of new hires were temporary. This creates fundamental inequality. Imagine you're a 35-year-old Spanish professional in Barcelona, 2025. You've worked since 2012, 13 years of career, but you've never had a permanent contract. You cannot get mortgage because banks don't lend to temporary workers. You cannot plan to have children because you might lose income any quarter. Your frustration with system is entirely justified. The pension system faces same math as Italy and Greece. Spain's birth rate is 1.2 children per woman, well below replacement. Population aging rapidly. By 2050, working age population will decline 20%, while retiree population increases 30%. The housing market never fully recovered. Prices are back to 2007 levels in Madrid and Barcelona, but still 30 to 40% below peak in many areas. 5 million empty homes still exist. The massive oversupply means rents and prices cannot rise much, even as economy recovers. Zombie companies persist. Many Spanish firms survived crisis only because banks rolled over loans rather than forcing bankruptcy. These zombie firms employ workers but don't invest or grow. They drag down productivity. Political corruption was staggering. Numerous politicians and developers were convicted of kickbacks and bribes. Local officials approved developments in exchange for cash payments. The Girdle case exposed massive corruption network. When boom ended, the corruption was revealed. So if Spain built 5 million excess homes because European central banks' low rates created mania, if 56% youth unemployment created lost generation, if labor market reforms created permanent two-tier system, and if pension demographics guarantee future crisis, what exactly was accomplished by staying in euro? 4. The incomplete recovery. Spain's GDP returned to pre-crisis peak in 2017, 9 years after crash. That's 9 years of lost growth. For comparison, US GDP exceeded pre-crisis peak by 2011, 3 years after crash. Spain's recovery was slowest in developed world except Greece. Employment improved, but quality deteriorated. Unemployment fell from 27% peak to 13% by 2019. But most new jobs were temporary, part-time or low-wage service positions. The good construction jobs paying €3,000 monthly never returned. Spain replaced middle-class jobs with working poor jobs. The generational wealth gap widened. Older Spaniards who bought property before boom are sitting on valuable assets. Younger Spaniards priced out of market have accumulated no housing wealth. Inheritance has become only path to property ownership. Spanish society increasingly divided between property-owning older generation and renting forever younger generation. The fertility crisis accelerated. Spain's birth rate fell from 1.4 children per woman in 2008 to 1.2 in 2020. Young people facing temporary employment and unable to afford housing, delay, or skip having children entirely. By 2060, Spain's population will decline by 5 million. The banking sector remains fragile. Spanish banks have higher capital ratios than pre-crisis, but still carry significant non-performing loans. The bank consolidation saw dozens of regional savings banks absorbed. Banking competition decreased, fees increased, small business lending declined. Political fragmentation persists. Traditional two-party system collapsed. People's Party and socialists now must form coalitions with regional parties and upstarts. Governments are less stable, reforms harder to pass. Crisis destroyed trust in traditional parties, but didn't produce viable alternatives. Tourism dependence increased dangerously. With manufacturing uncompetitive and construction dead, tourism became a larger share of economy. COVID pandemic revealed vulnerability. In 2020, tourist arrivals fell 80%. Dependence on foreign tourists means Spanish economy's health depends on decisions of German and British travelers. The scenarios ahead are limited. Scenario 1, permanent second-tier status. Spain remains in euro, grows slowly below European average, specializes in tourism and services, accepts role as vacation destination for richer north. Scenario 2, gradual recovery. Spain improves productivity through education and technology investment, slowly closes gap with Germany over 30 years. Scenario 3, eventual crisis and exit. Spain faces another shock, exits currency union, devalues, rebuilds competitiveness. Bottom line, Spain's 5 million empty homes, 56% youth unemployment peak, and 300,000 brain drain exodus didn't happen by accident. They happened because European central bank's interest rate policy designed for German inflation created unsustainable boom in Spain, because banks offered 100% mortgages to anyone, because construction became 16% of GDP, and because Eurozone membership meant only adjustment mechanism was brutal wage deflation that sacrificed entire generation. For individuals, the choice is stark: accept lower wages and temporary contracts in beautiful country, or emigrate to places with actual career paths. 300,000 young Spaniards already chose the latter. Click the playlist in the card above to continue the journey. Next up, Portugal's golden visa scheme that sold citizenship until locals revolted, followed by Argentina's perpetual default cycle. That story continues now.